She was my entire world, my anchor, my ray of sunshine on a cloudy day. Her name was Emily, a name that was as beautiful and gentle as she was. Our love story was one worthy of a Nicholas Sparks novel, filled with laughter, shared dreams, and a love so deep that it often left me breathless. From the moment our paths crossed during our sophomore year in a small Midwestern university, we became inseparable. I still remember the way her hazel eyes sparkled whenever she laughed, and how her face would light up every time she talked about her dreams of becoming a pediatrician. Then abruptly, it all ended. It was a cold winter morning when the news came. Emily was dead. A car accident, they said. The words echoed unbelievably in my ears. I stared blankly at the police officer who delivered the news. His mouth moved, but all I could hear was a buzz. The world around me seemed to slow down, and I felt an oppressive weight on my chest. I felt the ground give way beneath me, and the chilling grasp of grief clawing at my heart. The love of my life, the girl with 1,000 dreams, was gone, like a candle snuffed out by a cruel gust of wind. The days that followed were a blur of tears, condolences, and funeral preparations. I stumbled through them like a ghost, barely aware of anything beyond the gaping hole left in my heart by Emily's sudden departure. I was a mere shell of the vibrant man I once was, hollowed out by the overwhelming pain of my loss. I missed everything about her, her laugh, her warmth, and more than anything the future we had planned together. The house by the ocean she always wanted, the names we had picked out for our future children, our shared dreams and aspirations, all drowned in the void of her absence. Staring at the empty space on the bed beside me was a brutal reminder of the radiant smile that I would no longer wake up to, of how abruptly our harmonious love relationship had been ended. Then, 3 months after Emily's supposed death, an anonymous email arrived. The subject line read, "Emily is alive." My heart stopped as I opened it, the words blurring before my eyes as shock waves reverberated through me. The sender claimed they had seen Emily in Boston, alive and well. They even attached a picture. My heart pounded in my chest as I clicked on the image attachment. The world around me seemed to freeze as I stared at the screen, my eyes wide with shock and disbelief. It was her. Emily, alive. The date stamp on the picture showed it was taken just a week ago. A whirlwind of emotions surged within me. Relief, anger, confusion. The pain of the past months seemed to multiply tenfold, consuming me. Anguish ripped through me at the thought of Emily faking her death. The betrayal cut a wound deeper than any knife could have. Why would she do this? Was our love not real? Was this her cruel way of ending our relationship? My mind raced with questions that I had no answers to. The police had no record of any accident. No funeral home had a record of her burial. No trace of Emily's death existed except the devastating news I had received months ago, and the grief that had haunted me every day since. Was it possible that Emily had faked her death? That she was out there alive, while I drowned in my sorrow? As the fury smoldered inside me, the pain seemed to transform, fueling a resolution deep within me. I would find Emily. I needed answers. I needed closure. With a newfound determination, I began my quest to track down Emily, to find the truth behind her supposed death, and confront her about the pain her actions had caused. Little did I know that our reunion would be a scene I would never forget. Long after the grief had settled in, after I relinquished the initial shock and disbelief of her loss, I began to stumble upon some peculiarities. While sorting through Lisa's old things, a painful process of remembering, mourning, and surrendering, I found something that jolted me from my self-imposed stupor. Amid the tangle of forgotten letters and aged photographs, old concert tickets and shared memorabilia, there was an envelope I did not remember. I recognized Lisa's handwriting on it, the way she curled her L's and crossed her T's, but seeing my own name scrawled across the weathered paper struck me as odd. It was addressed to me, but I had never seen it before. My heart tugged at the strings of curiosity and fear aligned with the unknown. Against the better judgment of my grieving mind, I tore open the envelope. Inside, there was a single piece of paper with a bank statement printed on it. The disjointed numbers and letters did little to assuage my flickering confusion until my mind latched onto a series of transactions. Activity, the statement said, from an account under Lisa's name, months after her reported death. The room spun around me in a whirlwind of shock and disbelief. I felt like I was drowning, battling against a tide of denial and acceptance. How could she still be alive? Why would she fake her death? A crushing mixture of betrayal and relief flooded over me, and for a moment, I was back on the night she died. I threw the bank statement back into the envelope, desperately wishing to bury my suspicions. But like a restless ghost, my curiosity wouldn't stay buried. I couldn't just ignore it. I had to find the truth. I had to know if Lisa was really still alive. I began looking into the transactions, tracing the money to an out-of-state account. With a grim determination, I started my investigation, delving into places I never thought I'd visit looking for answers I wasn't sure I wanted. My pursuit led me to a small town in Oregon, where Lisa's account had been active. I felt like I was stepping into a parallel universe, a world where Lisa had created a new life entirely separate from her own, and from me. Walking down the quiet streets, I felt like an intruder, a specter from Lisa's past life trespassing in her present. My heart pounded in anticipation, dread and hope in equal measure. Each stranger's face held a breath of possibility, a fleeting expectation of familiarity that disappeared as quickly as it appeared. I was lost in my thoughts, wrestling with the potential complexities of our reunion, when I saw her, out of the corner of my eye, a flash of familiar red hair. A laugh I would recognize anywhere. My heart skipped a beat, then two. It was Lisa. Seeing her there, alive and seemingly happy, was like being hit by a lightning bolt. A flood of emotions washed over me. Relief, anger, confusion. But above all, I felt an overwhelming sense of betrayal. As she turned and saw me, our eyes locking, her facade crumbled. The color drained from her face, replaced by a look of shock and guilt. At that moment, everything became too real. Battleships of emotions clashed inside of me, the waves of which threatened to drown me. Yet, I found myself wading through it towards her. I had come this far, and now I needed answers. They say the truth will set you free, but as I stood in my dimly lit living room, staring blankly at the chilling obituary clipping pinned to my corkboard, I felt anything but free. The gaping wound of betrayal seemed to be consuming me from within, as a dangerous concoction of anger and confusion bubbled beneath its surface. This was war, a war scripted not by love, but by her betrayal. I was her boyfriend, meant to protect and cherish her. But she had played me for a fool, using death as an escape route. My fists clenched involuntarily at the thought. "Sophia, you're going to pay for this," I spat, the venom in my words a potent mirror to the storm swirling inside me. Intense days ensued. Days marked by gritted teeth and relentless searching. Every lead, every possible connection was explored. I delved into her past, dug deep into the murkiness that was Sophia's existence. It was not just tough, it was excruciating, like a dagger being twisted in my heart with every step. I'd sit with my old friends, Johnny and Evan, at our usual table in the bar, the neon lights casting an uncomfortable glow on our grim faces. The topic, Sophia, of course. The plan, find her and confront her. "I can't understand how she could do this, man," Johnny would say, shaking his head in disbelief. "Neither do I, Johnny. Neither do I," I'd mutter, my insides churning, every nerve racked with grief and anger. Almost unconsciously, I would reach for the empty glass of whiskey, the taste of betrayal still bitter on my tongue. The ice cubes clinked hollowly, mirroring the emptiness within. I knew I had to find her, not just for me, but for the falseness that she'd spun around both our lives. She didn't deserve to live in oblivion while I was left bearing the brunt of it. No, she needed to face this as well. One cold night, staring at a photo of us together on my fireplace mantel, I was struck by a realization so profound, it felt like I had been punched. I was living in a past, haunted by the specter of a woman who'd vanished into thin air, while she was out there somewhere, breathing, living a lie. The anger that slithered inside me transformed into determination. I was going to end this once and for all. Sherman, a private detective who owed me a favor, was called in. I didn't sleep for nights, poring over the phone bills, her social media accounts, her old emails, debts, anything that could lead me to her. Meanwhile, the anger inside me was metamorphosing yet again, this time into a cold, vengeful hardness. It was a peculiar mix of fury and purpose that drove me on those lonely nights. The endless cups of coffee, the maps unfurled over my dining table. I was not just out to confront Sophia. I wanted justice, and I wouldn't stop till I had my closure. After months of relentless pursuit, we had a breakthrough. Sherman found a lead, a supposed friend of Sophia, living in a small town on the East Coast. It was flimsy, but it was all we had. Despite the bitterness, I couldn't ignore the uneasy flutter in my stomach. Was I finally going to meet Sophia again? The woman who'd been my everything, and then nothing. The woman who'd loved me, and then lied to me in the most despicable way possible. "I'm coming for you, Sophia," I muttered to myself, staring out into the inky blackness of the night, my eyes reflecting an unquenchable resolve. Let's see how you fake your death when confronted with the truth. This was it, the climax of my roller coaster ride of emotions. As my flight took off, soaring into the distant clouds, I let out a long sigh. This was not the end, but it marked the beginning of the end. I was coming for Sophia. Not as her lover, not as her friend, but as her judge. And she would be answerable for her sins. What awaited us was an unforgettable scene. After weeks of relentless searching, the night of our reunion was finally here. I found her at a cozy little bistro in the heart of San Francisco. She always did have a thing for clam chowder. It was a rainy night, the streets slick with a reflective sheen, twinkling with the pulsating city lights. A perfect backdrop for the inevitable drama that was about to unfold. As I pushed open the heavy wooden entrance to the bistro, my heart pounded in my chest. My palms were sweaty, my mind was racing. I was about to meet Emily again, the woman I loved, the woman who had faked her death and abandoned me, the woman whom I had mourned. So many emotions swirled inside me. I spotted Emily sitting alone at a table near a window, her silhouette softly illuminated by the glow of the street lamps. She looked up as I approached, her face registering surprise and then morphing into a guarded mask. Her blonde hair was cut shorter than I remembered. Her eyes held an unfamiliar hardness. "Hello, Emily," I said, my voice shaky. Her surprised gasp reverberated in the quiet bistro. "Why are you here, John?" she asked in a low, steady voice. "I spent the last 2 years of my life mourning you, Emily, and then I found out that the grave I had been visiting was empty. A lie," I answered, struggling to keep my voice steady. Emily didn't respond. She just stared into her half-finished bowl of chowder. When she finally spoke, her voice was merely a whisper. "I didn't want you to find out this way." A bitter laugh escaped my lips. "So what then? You wanted me to grieve for you forever? To live the rest of my life thinking you were dead? Why?" Her eyes flickered with sorrow. "John, you don't understand," she said, her voice wavering. "I had to. I was being threatened. My life was in danger, and by association, so was yours. I felt like I had been punched in the gut. Threatened? In danger? Nothing was making sense. Emily, why didn't you come to me? We could have faced it together. I couldn't put you in that kind of danger, she replied with a choked sob. And I didn't trust you enough to protect me. Her words were like daggers in my chest. You didn't trust me? I echoed, feeling a bitter sting. Our years of shared history, the bond we had built, it was all worthless. I had to steady myself against the table, my world spinning out of control. Emily's eyes were glazed over with tears now. John, I'm sorry. I should have told you. I should have trusted you. The confrontation was too much. Revelations were too shocking. We sat there, bathed in the golden light, the silence between us as thick as the fog outside. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, I broke the silence. I loved you, Emily. I said, my voice barely audible above the rain hitting the window. You chose to reject that, to reject us. And I can't forgive you for making me mourn you, for making me feel like I lost a part of myself. With that, I rose from my chair, my heart weighed heavy with the burden of truths revealed. I left her there, in the bistro, cold rain washing away the remnants of a relationship that was never meant to be, taking with it our shared past and dousing the faint embers of a future we could have had. Our reunion, a maelstrom of intense arguments, shocking revelations, and emotional confrontations, was indeed an unforgettable scene. It was the climax of a tragic love story, the fulfillment of a lie. But despite the hurt and anger, I found a strange relief. A chapter closed, closure found, and a permission to move forward, one painstaking step at a time. My breath hitched as I stood face to face with my past. The woman I had mourned, cursed, and eventually forgiven. The love of my life that I thought was lost forever. Katie, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. Why? It was the only question that mattered, the word laced with years of hurt, confusion, and longing. She looked at me, her hazel eyes as deep and mysterious as the day we met. Then, she spoke. Her voice a haunting melody that brought back bittersweet memories. Jake, I had my reasons, she began, her voice barely above a whisper. I was young, confused. I didn't know how to handle the pressure, the commitments. You were ready for a life I wasn't. I loved you, Katie, I interjected, emotion swelling up in my voice. Wasn't that enough? Sometimes, Jake, love isn't enough, she said. Her eyes went misty as if she was on the brink of tears. You needed someone who was ready to stand by you, and I wasn't that person. I thought if I disappeared, you'd move on, find someone better. But you didn't have to fake your death, I protested, the rawness of my emotions threatening to break me. I hurt so much, Katie, more than you could ever know. I'm sorry, Jake, she whispered, her gaze never leaving mine. I've carried this guilt for years. But I also saw you grow, become stronger, more mature. I saw you move on and live your life. And seeing that, I knew my decision, as harsh as it was, led you to where you needed to be. I stared at her, my heart pounding in my chest, a whirlwind of emotions threatening to pull me under. But amidst the hurt, the anger, the betrayal, I also felt a strange sense of relief, a finality to a chapter that had been left unfinished for too long. I never got to say goodbye, Katie, I said, my voice choked with emotion. I never got closure. Is that what you want, Jake? She asked softly, her eyes meeting mine in a silent plea. A chance to say goodbye? I paused, considering her question. Did I want to say goodbye? Did I want to stir up old memories, old feelings? Did I want to walk away and let bygones be bygones? Looking at Katie, I realized that closure didn't come from saying goodbye, but from forgiveness. It came from understanding that people made mistakes, that circumstances could force actions that seemed unfathomable. It came from accepting the past and learning to live in the present. It came from moving on. "Goodbye, Katie," I said finally, holding her gaze. It wasn't a goodbye filled with resentment or regret, but with acceptance and understanding. "I hope you find your peace." As I walked away, leaving behind years of confusion and hurt, I felt lighter. I had faced my past, confronted my unanswered questions, and emerged out the other side stronger, wiser. I had learned valuable lessons of love, deception, and the importance of moving on. I had grown. And as I moved forward, I understood that every journey, no matter how painful, led to self-growth. Every experience, no matter how devastating, taught lessons that were invaluable. And every person, no matter how they hurt us, made us who we were. Life, as it turned out, had a funny way of giving us what we needed when we least expected it. And as I embraced my future, I knew that everything had happened for a reason. It had all led me to this moment, to this realization. In the end, it wasn't about the goodbye. It was about the journey, the lessons, the growth. It was about moving on, and that was the twist, the unexpected note on which this intense experience led me. It was forgiveness. It was self-growth. It was everything.